Good morning, YouTube, BookTube. This is Johnny. About to make a video. It's been a couple of days. Today we're in the month of December. December the 3rd, 2023 is 9:48 in the morning here in West Michigan. Yeah, we live in Holland, Michigan. It's along Lake Michigan. We don't live right on the lake, but we live about maybe 15 minutes from the lake. I haven't been out in the lake, as I've mentioned. I don't go out to the lake, especially now it's winter. I used to go out there during the fall. There's parks along the lake, take photos, but haven't done that in a while. So yeah, I'll make a video. It's a new month, December, the 12th month of the year. And I'm still getting over my respiratory kind of infection. My wife has COVID, so she's not going to church today. She got sick last week and she tested positive for COVID. I don't think I had COVID. I think I had some kind of, I went to the dentist, what was it, Friday morning. I had a dentist appointment at 8 o'clock in the morning, and my dentist said people have this cough and it goes on for months. So anyway, the point is, in this video I am not going to talk about what I've been reading. I'm just going to show you thrift store books I've gotten at the Blue Stocking bookshop, books I got at the local library. Even though the Book Nook, the library, our local library used bookstore, the Book Nook, where I volunteered for almost, at least over 10 years, is closed because they're remodeling the library. And it won't be open until next year, maybe not until June 2024. But they still sell books that they had left over in the Book Nook. And I went there Thursday. Because I think I mentioned in my last video my car battery died, and the AA guy said it's good to drive your car at least a half hour, an hour a day to keep the battery recharged. So I drove to the library to look at their used books, which are just on carts, and I ran into one of the volunteers who fills up the carts in the library, and I looked at some used books and I bought a couple biographies. And then yesterday I went to Gateway, which is the rescue mission thrift store, and found a bunch of books. But what I'm going to do in this video is I'm not going to show you all of the books because it'll take too long, and I don't want this video to go on and on and on. So first I'm going to show you the thrift store books and the library books, books from Goodwill, which is, we have North Side and South Side Goodwill. We live on the south side of Holland. Excuse me. And I went to Gateway. See, I got this caught. And I'm just going to show you the books. Well, I went to Gateway because I had to drive the car, and Gateway's only about 5 minutes from where we live. It's a big, huge rescue mission thrift store. They sell furniture, knickknacks, stereo equipment, clothes, all kinds of stuff. And one of the books I picked up yesterday at Gateway was Hollywood, Larry McMurtry. Hollywood is called A Third Memoir. Well, I've shown you over the last couple of years, I've read his books, a memoir. As you know, Larry McMurtry, he wrote, I don't know how many books he wrote. There's a list of how many books he wrote. He was a prolific writer, but he's probably most famous for Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. I read this years ago. My edition, paperback, was published in 1985. I read this, really enjoyed it. I did start collecting Larry McMurtry, and then I realized I just didn't want to get into his novels, but I did keep his memoirs. I got this one, Hollywood, Larry McMurtry, the third memoir, and then he wrote books, a memoir. He not only was a writer, and he also wrote screenplays, but he also was he owned a bookstore in Georgetown, Washington for many years, and then he moved it down into Texas where he was from. He was an antiquarian book dealer. He bought libraries, bookstores. He had, at one time, he had, I don't know how many thousands and thousands of books for sale. And he writes about that whole kind of world and what it was like in his memoir books. And then he wrote about his literary life, a memoir, a second memoir, A Literary Life by Larry McMurtry. You can read these, I mean, if you look at them, each chapter is probably, it's very big print, 3 pages, probably a chapter, very chatty. I really enjoyed reading them. I think Larry McMurtry died the last couple of years. So I picked up his third one at Gateway. This thing's... So, because he was a screenwriter, he wrote Hunchback Mountain screenplay for that movie. He wrote other screenplays that are very famous, which kind of just, Brokeback Mountain, Terms of Endearment, you know that movie. He wrote a novel called Tears of Endearment. So I picked that up at Gateway, and then I also picked this up at Gateway yesterday. Eli Kazan, very famous movie producer. It says here, few figures in the film and theater history tower like Eli Kazan, born in 1909 to Greek parents in Istanbul, Turkey. He arrived in America with an incomparable vision and drive, and by 1950s he was the most important, influential director in the nation, simultaneously dominating both theater and film. His productions of Streetcar Named Desire and Death of a Salesman reshaped the values of the stage. His films, most notably On the Waterfront, brought a new realism and new intensity of performance to the movies. Yeah, On the Waterfront was Marlon Brando. I kind of grew up with these films, and that's why I got a lot of the films that's mentioned in here. I remember watching as I advanced through my years. So I got, this is by Richard Schickel, a bio. So I got that. He also did the movie East of Eden, which is very famous. And then I picked up at Gateway, the Presidents versus the Press, Endless Battle Between the White House and the Media, From the Founding Fathers to Fake News by Harold Holzer. I have 3 books by him. He's a very famous President Lincoln scholar, Harold Holzer, and I have 2 books by him that he wrote on Abraham Lincoln. He wrote a book called Abraham Lincoln and the Press, which I have. Yeah, he wrote. Well, I was looking in here how many books he wrote on Lincoln. It's just, you could fill a library. He was it says here, winner of the Lincoln Prize. See at the bottom there? Yeah, he was a Lincoln scholar, Abraham Lincoln scholar. So I picked this up at Gateway. Yeah, I have 3 other books by him. And then I picked this up at Gateway. Excuse me. This is Santa Evita. This is translated. This is by Tomas, Eloy, Martinez, translated by Helen Lane. This is a novel. Excuse me. And so, yeah, I never heard of him, but it was recommended in the back by Mario Vegas Lasso, who I collect. I have over there probably 20 of his books in my library, and I like books in translation, and it looked kind of interesting. There's a picture of him. When I find a book, a used book at a thrift store or a used book sale, I like to look at the photo of the author, and I like to look at them. It says he was born in Argentina in 1934. After starting his career as a journalist and editor, Martinez was forced by Isabel Perón's government to leave Argentina in 1975, and for the next 8 years he lived in exile in Venezuela. And this goes on and on. I picked this up. And then I found this at Gateway. This was a find. This is the Peabody Sisters of Salem. It's in this folio edition, Book of the Month. If you don't know who the Peabody sisters are, one of the Peabody sisters was married to Nathaniel Hawthorne, and then the other one was married to another prominent American transcendentalist, and Horace, I think it was Horace Mann. But this is really a nice edition. It's in perfect condition. It has all kinds of there's a picture of Nathaniel Hawthorne, one of the Peabody sisters. They were Sophie Peabody has these nice illustrations. See, it has these illustrations. It's really a great book. It's only cost me, I got all these books from Gateway for $3. I had another biography. This is by Louisa Hall Tharp. I have another book by her right here by the table here. She wrote this book, Louisa Hall Tharp, Mrs. Jack, a biography of Isabel Stewart Gardner, who was a very prominent Boston Brahmin. She started a museum, which I have right here. She started it's there in Boston. It's called what's it's called? I can't remember. Anyway, I can't remember the museum now there in Boston. Isabel Stewart Gardner Museum. So I got that. Louisa Hall Tharp wrote a biography, Mrs. Jack, a biography of Isabel Stewart Gardner, and she wrote this one, The Peabody Sisters of Salem by Louisa Hall Tharp. And I have another book Biography and the Peabody Sisters, if I can get this. This is really a fine. It's really nice. It has goes into a slip cover, has this thing on the front. I think that's Sophie Peabody, who was married to Nathaniel Hawthorne. And I have this one, the Peabody Sisters. This is by Megan Marshall. The Peabody Sisters, Three Women Who Ignited American Romanticism, by Megan Marshall. She also wrote other books I have in my library. I think she wrote one on Margaret Fuller, but I'm not really sure. But the Peabody Sisters. Yeah, I've been really into American Transcendentalism, American Romanticism, and the Peabody Sisters were part of that whole literary, philosophical, intellectual movement in the early 19th century America. So yeah, I was really pleased to find this. Perfect condition. And then I found at Goodwill, this is by a Japanese poet. It's his memoirs. I can't pronounce his name. Mutsuo, I can't pronounce his name, but this is his memoir. 12 Views from the Distance, translated by Jeffrey Angles. And I like memoirs, and it was only like 80 cents. It's all. It takes place in the 30s and 40s during the war. He grew up in a small rural village, and he writes about that life and the war and how it affected him and his family in Japan. Edmund White recommends it. Edmund White is a writer I collect. It is considered, I don't know. It just looked interesting. It was only like, really cheap. I like memoirs. And then I picked up at Gateway this book, Paintings of New York, 1800 to 1950, by Bruce Weber. I suppose he's the editor. As you know, I collect books on New York, and these are paintings of New York. I found one of these on Paris too. I'll show in a future video. Yeah, I collect books on New York City, not the state of New York, but there's a picture there by Edward Hopper, who I collect. So I got that at Gateway. Then I found this at Goodwill, The Conservative Sensibility, Essays by George E. Will, who's a very prominent conservative intellectual. He's a good writer. I have another book of his somewhere. And I like reading essays, and he's a very interesting person. George E. Well, he's considered, this is also a New York Times book review, 100 Notable Books of 2019. Yeah, it looked interesting, and so I picked this up at Goodwill. And then I picked these up at the library. Aldous Huxley, a biography by Nicholas Murray. Now, I had this already. I didn't know it. This is my edition I have of the same biography. Aldous Huxley, An English Intellectual by Nicholas Murray. One of my favorite books when I was a young man was Huxley's Doors of Perception, Heaven and Hell. This is by... and I also like this book, Muska, Writings on Psychedelics and Visionary Experience by Huxley. These are different essays he wrote, letters where he writes about psychedelics and his experience. So, yeah, now I have a hardback copy of his biography. This is by Nicholas Murray. And then I picked up at the library a biography of G.K. Chesterton, a biography by Michael Ffinch. I have some writings by Chesterton. I like to find more of his writings, but it's hard to find. And then I picked up this book at Goodwill, Mr. Kookie, You're Right, by Mike Royka. He was a columnist, I can't pronounce the word, but I had just picked up his biography, and I found his columns, a sample of his his column in the Chicago Tribune. So I wanted to go along with his biography I just picked up. This is, yeah, a Chicago Tribune bestseller. He was Royka, A Life in Print by Richard Schickel. So I just got this to go along with the book. So those are some of the books. I got a whole stack over there still to show in a future video. These are the kind of books I collect. Books that interest me as I go through my time span. And it's a Sunday morning, it's a new week, nothing really going on throughout this week. Just going to read and write. Yesterday we watched college football, today's professional football. I've been reading that New Testament theology I showed you pretty steadily, reading the letters of Peabody, and yeah, the days just go by. So I hope you had a good reading week, that you having a good reading weekend. Do pray you're all doing well. Yeah, I was really excited to find this Peabody kind of thing. Just perfect condition. Just a real find. Because I'm really into American traditionalism in that whole time period. So I was glad to find that. Especially, it's only like $1. So yeah, nothing else to talk about. I got books coming in the mail this week. I'll show in a video. So I'll sign off. This is going on 24 minutes. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for your comments. Do pray you're all doing well. And until next time, bye.